Jonesy and Amanda.
Jam Nation.
So I do a podcast with my friend Anita McGregor. It's called AA Chattery. And the reason I wanted to do a podcast with Anita is that obviously there's a million podcasts, but Anita's perspective on the world is very interesting. She is a forensic psychologist, and what that means is she works as a psychologist within the legal system, the policing system. So she sees clients, as she calls them. She sees clients who are sex offenders, who are violent offenders, from all spectrums of life, who have been before the courts, before the police. And she has huge sympathy for these people. So I was intrigued what her spin
Which is a hard
would be.
thing to say when you say you have huge sympathy for violent offenders, isn't it?
Well, I said to her,
So would you say empathy, not sympathy so much?
a bit of both, I think, because I've said to her in the past, or she has said, it's awful for someone to be defined by the worst thing they've ever done. I said, what if they skin a woman alive? And she said, well, that's for the courts to determine. And of course they should be punished. She said, my job is to find out what went on, why they did it, and make sure it doesn't happen again. And it's a big frustration for her that her job is funded by the courts, I guess, by the government. So if she sees someone while they're in front of the courts for 20 sessions, and she's only halfway through doing this changing therapy, changing their sexual triggers, changing this and that, and she sees the path, and then the funding drops off, they're not going to come of their own volition and pay to have psychology sessions. So she sees every day where the system is falling down. So we all saw across the weekend giant rallies all around Australia about this scourge of violence against women. We've been talking about it for the last few weeks. 32 women, if you include the women that were killed in Bondi Junction, have been killed in the first 114 days of this year. On average, that's a woman being killed, well, pretty much more than every 4 days. This time last year, that number was way less. Oh. So what is it? What are we missing? And Anita has some very interesting thoughts, and we spoke about this on our podcast. Here's just some of what she had to say.
I'm probably going to say some things that are offensive to some people here in Australia as we talk today. Should we go and arm the security guards? I mean, how ridiculous. Why don't we go and actually spend a little money on training security guards about how to deal with somebody who is in crisis, somebody who is mentally ill? That would be a much better use of our funding, I think. From my 30 plus years of experience working in this area, I don't think New South Wales in particular is doing a very good job.
What are we doing wrong?
I think it's the lack of training, right from police and intervention to the treatment of perpetrators. Part of it is that there are really well researched risk factors that are associated with domestic violence, and I don't think that the responders, first responders, or treatment providers are being made well aware of what that looks like.
Oh, God, still. So this, what are we doing? We're just funding refuges or whatever. We're putting money into the scenario, but we're not stopping it in the right place.
Well, there's this this story that, talks about, I guess, an allegory of a going and picking up bodies downstream, and you keep picking up the bodies downstream, which is what we're doing here. We tend to just be picking up bodies every second day, instead of at some point going and looking upstream and saying, what is happening? How can we actually look at this situation? And I think that there are some really concrete things that we actually can do.
But we're not.
I think that there's a lot of really well-meaning people. And I think that there are some people, some things that are happening that are good, but I think for the most part, we are not looking upstream enough, and we are not actually doing the things that we need to do. It's just frankly, it's quite unpopular to kind of say, if we have $1 million to spend, are we going to spend the money on victims, or are we going to spend the money on perpetrators? And there's a lot of pushback about treating the perpetrators. And so while I absolutely think that there needs to be treatment and support and resources offered for victims of domestic violence, if we don't treat the perpetrators, all we're doing is creating more victims down the road.
And it's like before it happens. There was a young lady in one of the rallies, and she was holding up a sign that just said, "Protect our girls," but she crossed that out and said, "Teach your boys." And that's what I had this revelation in a relationship. It's not ownership. When you're in a relationship with someone, you don't own that person. You love that person. But if that person cheats on you or anything like that, you have no right to go and kill that person and set your kids on fire. If your wife cheats on you, then that your relationship is broken down, and that is sad. But that's where it stops.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing you can. You go through the courts, and I know that the family court is dreadful, but it never gets to that point where you would kill that woman and your children. But for some reason, that crime of passion thing comes out there, and everyone says, "Oh, it's just a crime of passion." No, it's not. It's just you just have to deal with it. And I don't know. There's got to be a way other than dealing with it with violence.
I think it's also teaching young men to be resilient.
Yeah.
I used to say this to my sons: you're going to get your hearts broken. You're going to have to deal with it. And also, you can't just say someone lost control. They don't lose control at their boss. They don't lose control. They lose control at home with their partners. And also, there are terrible statistics about children growing up in homes where this is happening. You are 7 times more likely to be a perpetrator yourself. There are so many markers here that we know that we can stop sooner. But you're right, Brendan, we do have to say to our young men, deal with your own emotions in a safe way.
Yeah.
And that does mean teaching perpetrators, talking to perpetrators. As Anita said, it's unpopular. You don't want your tax dollar to go to the men here. But without it, we're just pulling out bodies downstream.
Get it before it goes. Get it upstream.
Yeah.
Well, Double A Chattery, check it out where you get all your podcasts. iHeartRadio is always a good place.